All right. Yeah. So like up to last time, what we did was we were able to write multiple test cases, right, for the search in file functionality, and some of them were positive test cases, some of them were negative error test cases, and now we are working on a second story of the problem statement, which is reading input from STDIN and grepping on that input, right? So last time again we discussed about ideas like we have two ways of doing this. One is where we just test the inner core problem, core functionality, which is the grepping part, and we leave the other external external entities like IO for input and output, etc., and we leave it out of the test case. That is one way. Other way is we write it more like end to end, in a sense that we figure out some way to mock or some way to still pass the input via STT inside a test case. Right? Those were the two mechanisms in which we could do. I don't know whether you managed to take a look at the links that I shared, and does that make sense?
Yeah, I saw, but didn't get like all of it.
Okay, so do we want to go for the STDIN approach where we mock the STDIN in some way?
Like,
any thoughts from others?
Can you please repeat?
Yeah, so the question is, do we want to go with a STDIN testing approach where we will still test the input from STDIN via the test case without actually waiting for the user to send and type the input, right? Because if you think about it, a test case is automated, right? So in a test case, we can't wait for user input, because then that's not automated test case, that's manual test case. Right? And we don't want to write manual test case, we want to write an automated test case. So how do we still accept the input which is manual as part of STDIN, but in a test case it is automated?
Okay.
Does that even make sense? Like what?
Yes, we'll write to the reader.
Correct. So we need to write to with an abstraction in mind. Right. And the implementation is STDIN for the real program, but in a test case it will be overridden by some dummy implementation.
Yes, let us try that.
So yeah, if you can
test. Like, is it a good function? I don't know. Any suggestion?
Yeah, so generally if there is a acronym, right, which is STDIN, etc., then we still capitalize it so that it is I mean this way, or the full STDIN as a capital, but this also works, I think.
Okay.
So let's do this, that we'll write the test case with a STDIN in mind, and then we will make this test case pass, and then we will go into a refactor mode. I will let the code tell us the duplication and issues with the current code. I won't go and try to expand on that right away, because like I'm almost able to see it, but I want others to be able to see how we can get feedback from the code and from the test case, right? So I don't want to share the implementation or how the eventual structure will look like right away. Let's discover it via the test case and the code. Yeah, so what we want to do is there. So in Golang now, this is where you'll have to Google search. Again, I don't have the syntax rectified. The link that I sent earlier, right? One of the links which was related to.
I'll send you the link.
Yeah, that might be easier.
Now I got it. But this is
Are others like following Shubham, Suraj, and bunch of others who have joined?
Yeah.
But not the implementation. I mean, how will we mimic
Okay.
the input as a STDIN?
Yeah, so I see you copied or you already done some code somewhere.
No, it's like the link you shared from there.
Okay. Right. So simple idea is, because we are coding to an interface, we can swap the implementation and still be able to like run the test case. That's the idea fundamentally. Other idea is, in many programming languages, like I know for the fact in like it's especially the static ones, dynamic languages are I think even more uh, like easier to just monkey patch things. But with even static languages like Go and Java, you can override what STDIN points to. So STDIN doesn't really mean, by default it means that you are leading from a terminal input, but you can override STDIN variable to read it from a file, for example.
Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah, that's the strategy we can use.
Okay,
I
so
think in the link that's the strategy they must have shared in the link also. Let me also open up.
so for that, like we have to write like the test in a file before that, or
Yeah, we almost like, it's almost like a writing to a file and reading it from that file, but for the program, it is like, it feels like it is reading from the STDIN. So it uses STDIN as a interface. The interface here purely means like not the Golang interface keyword, but a facade. That's the.
Is it necessary that we use a file? Can't we keep it in memory?
We can, I think, with a string reader or a string writer. So again, we are talking about using a read interface. Then if we use a reader interface, then we can have a string reader which we can read from a string. Or yeah, the other option, I think what is mentioned in the Stack Overflow is overriding the STDIN variable, right? So that also actually works. Anything, I mean, both of them work, to be honest. I don't have a like super preference of one over other, I would say. So if you want to use the Stack Overflow approach, that is also okay.
so
Yeah, Rohan, for simplicity, yes, you can proceed with the available solution. Maybe later on we can do it in memory.
okay, so like should I copy copy that, or
Yeah, if you have it ready, then.
but so like I मतलब पूरा मैं समझा नहीं है, मतलब कोई अगर
So anytime we copy code from someplace, we should at least try to understand it, right? That's the first step.
like मतलब
So
so
let's try to understand and the code. So do you want to walk us through your understanding of what this code does, and if there is any gaps, we can help you correct those.
so like he's storing the like whatever input he wants in the content, and he's creating a file using temp file. The first parameter is directory, like he will save the file here only in this directory, and second is the pattern. I don't know what is it, and then he's after like after reading from this file, he will remove the file, I think, and then he's writing it on the standard input. I think rest I don't think. I didn't get it.
Okay, instead of, I got a solution where we can do it as Chinmay said. The same post has solutions with string readers and bytes buffer. Rohan, I'll send you the solutions. Those are pretty small and easy to understand than this one. Can you check the chat?
Yes.
There are two probable solutions, one with bytes buffer and another with strings reader.
The recent one.
Yes, I've texted you.
So does anyone see a problem with just using Golang reader interface? Meaning if we were to use a reader interface, we will encounter a problem. What problem would that be?
If we implement a custom, let's say reading from a socket, and we don't implement this reader interface, maybe that can cause an issue.
So I'm not really sure whether reader interface or the read method in reader interface gives us line by line output. And that is what we want ideally, right? Or at least we want the entire output, which is delimited with a new line.
Okay. Yeah, it will give you a byte array, I think.
Yeah. So how do we get lines from that? That's a question. Okay, for now, let's use the one that we have. I think this is where what we should do is, because this is just simulated more programming in the sense that we're actually, otherwise it will take us a while to solve this problem. So I would say all of us should research about this later in our own spare time. Let's use this solution here. What we're doing is, if you can also decrease the font a bit. It is a bit too much actually, so not able to really see the full screen. Yeah, even smaller is okay. Right, so what we're doing here is creating a temp file, then deleting the temp file later, and we're overriding the STDIN, right? This on the line 115 you see, we are saying, okay, os.studin is equal to the temp file. So we're literally like, what's the return type or data type of temp file? Can you check?
This one.
File, right? So we can actually assign studin to a file. So we could also assign it to our existing file. We don't have to create a temp file.
And this is because both are implemented the reader interface. That's why we could do that.
Correct. Does this make sense?
Yes.
I think this is a very important concept to actually get. So if it is not clear, it's okay if we spend some more time on this, but I want to ensure that, like, even for others who are fully quiet, like maybe Akshay or Rahul or Shubham, is this kind of making sense, or is it just too much?
I'm sorry, what is making sense? Yeah,
Can you give the,
repeat the question.
can someone paraphrase?
Node STDIN deploy function okay. Read from temp file, mirror with input. Temp file. Okay. What is the question again? Could
Anyway, I think if you're, yeah, I mean that's okay. So the question is, does this code make sense? Like, do we know,
Readable.
do we understand why line 115 is possible? And what is the implication of line 115?
Yeah, I think Linux takes STDIN and STDOut as like literal files on the system, and it's just a reader interface that Golang uses to read from there. So whatever file we create, we can assign it to STDIN.
Yeah, that is very rightly said, right? That's the essence, that Linux file descriptors, like we see stdin, stdout, stderr, these are the three file descriptors we say, right? So why are they called file descriptors? Because literally it's like a pointer to a file in case of Linux also. So almost like everything in Linux is a file, right? If you have heard about this code, then this is exactly the manifestation of that. Yeah. So Rohan, what we can do is we can just use our own existing file instead of this stem file, and you can kind of modify the code to point to our existing testdata.txt file.
So,
I'll be back in a minute.
so should I like directly open?
Yeah. So do it in such a way that you get the os.file as returned, right?
It will return. What other thing I have to change?
I think you can directly assign temp file to STDN.
Yeah, we don't need to write anything, right? Because the content is
Yeah.
already there. So again, do we understand? That's what I want to ask again. I didn't think the understanding is correct. I mean, not everybody's doesn't look like everyone understand it, but it's okay. Like what you can do is let's just do it right now. Let's proceed. And I would ask you to later read more about the APIs and get your understanding clear on this, right? So what you can do, Rohan, is yeah, we don't need to write. So line number 102, 104, those can just go away. Even the line, what is the seek line 10678, that those also can go away, right? Yeah, we don't even need the content because the content is already in the file. So all we need is a file pointer that we can assign directly to old STD, the STDN. That's it.
Okay. So like we have to check the like what will be the main function or
Yeah, so this is where what we didn't follow the proper thinking process, right? We just directly copy pasted and started implementing, and now we are stuck. So I want us to remember what we talked about in the way first call as to what is the thing that we are testing. So we should always start with the when part in a test case. Only after we figure out the when, then we should write the given and the then, right? So what is it that we are testing? What's the when?
okay, so we are testing like suppose there is a function. So, But this is the function is like checking like doing the operation. So we have to figure out like what it will return and what parameter it will receive.
So do we want to test another function? Okay, let's write search in STDIN function. What is it that it will take? What will
Is
be
it
the
going
input?
to take the array of inputs, or this is going to implement that input, the input that is being taken from the user?
Yeah, so directly os.stdin would be the input to search in STDIN.
I think reader should be more appropriate.
Right. So yes, so now this is a point where we can directly jump and go to the final design, or we'll write the os.stdin and then figure out the common part and refactor. So let's start with os.stdin as an input to this function. Okay, I'll tell you why or how we can, for those who have already got the answer, they probably know how it will evolve. For those who don't have it, then it will make it easier for them to see the answer. Right. So let's start with accepting os.stdin as an input here and the search string. os.stdin is what is it? It's not a type, right?
So like is it a reader or something?
Yeah, just hover over os.stdin. That should give you an answer.
It's a pointer to a file. So it's just a file star.
I think STDIN would be more meaningful.
Why is that error so good?
This is because it is thinking you're calling this function, right?
So it's not a variable, os.stdin. It's just a, it's a variable. It's not a type.
This declaration is inside the test function, right? That is why this is thinking you're calling the function. You need to cut the whole line and paste it outside the function.
And what it will return, like error or the result?
Yes, the
Both.
Both, yeah.
Right. So Rahul, in the meantime, has asked a question that how will the program handle interrupt, right? What will happen if we press Control C, for example? So
You
what,
can check like io.eof.
yeah, so what will happen in this case is we are not going to run this program via a binary like go binary. Go run is not what we are going to use. We are purely running it via test cases. So the program will still work, but we don't have a way for user to press Control C because we don't have a way to even run the program right now. Does that make sense? Eventually, when we build, so that is what TDD again allows us to do, that it allows us to focus on the core of the problem, right? So the core of the problem is like yeah, I mean, there are multiple cores. Like the innermost core is the grep functionality. This is a bit of outer outer periphery or outer circle, and even outside of that there is a circle which is going to be your input output, your CLI, etc. So that part we haven't even built yet, because via TDD we haven't even discovered that as part of that via TDD. We are just doing and focusing on the core functionality.
And one thing I have a confusion, like how does the function will work? We are like, are we sending the like what does the STDIN consist? I don't get it. The search string, though I get it, like it will be read from the like command, like from flag. And what this STDIN will have?
Can you repeat the question? I'm not able to understand.
मतलब STDIN पे मतलब क्या रहेगा? सर्च स्ट्रिंग पे तो मतलब फ्लैग से हम लोग like string return.
I think he's asking what does like pointer to the os.file mean, or what will it consist of?
So I can try to give you an answer. When, let's say if you are reading through a scanner, then what parameter are you going to pass to the scanner? Where are you reading from? So I think STDIN comes at that point that you are supposed to read from STDIN. So if you create a scanner as buffio.new scanner, then you pass STDIN inside that, and then you go on reading through the console like scanner.scan.
So like,
yeah, so when we actually call search and STDIN, somewhere it'll be search and STDIN os.stdin, and then whatever pattern you want to search for inside it. And that will give search and STDIN function the contents within os.stdin file.
Okay, so can you write, like, actually just get rid of the error? So first of all, move this function inside the main code, right? Let's not have it here. In the main code, this is a test code, right? So this is a functional declaration, right? So that should be moved to the main.go file. Correct. And then let's also write the return type.
Array of string and error.
No, it will be not single string, right? It can be multiple matches. Why does it have to be a single string? It has to be multiple array of string, right? Correct.
In your declaration also.
Okay. Now just call the function here. You don't have to like write the string. We are calling a function, right? So we can just pass the search string. So let's write the STDIN here, and whatever is the search string. So we can again use the same test data that we have used in the previous test case, which is a string called what? Search underscore string, I think.
Yeah.
So in double quotes, we need to type search underscore string.
I think the one dropped off.
Okay.
I tried that buffio scanner method. It takes new lines as well.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah,
Chinmay, I think you can pause the recording so that it'll be easier.
yeah.
Okay. What we have done is we called this method which expects a os.file and the search string, and this is supposed to return us the matched lines. And what we're essentially doing is comparing this, what we want and what we have got from this. And if it's not matching, then we throw an error. And this is the test data. So, and the search string is literally the search string. So it should return me this line. This is actually the want of our test case. Let us try this. So as the red green refactoring cycle, this has failed because we haven't implemented this yet. Shall we start with this implementation?
Yeah, we can do that. And here, yeah, let's so it will be mostly like copy pasting bunch of part from above function, right?
Acha.
So
Okay, but first we need to take input from the standard in, right?
yeah, so here now if you see what is happening, it's the if you look at line number 23, we are creating a new scanner from a file.
Correct.
Actually, from this line onwards, the code is exactly same
Correct.
for the next function.
Yes.
Correct, because the file is the interface, or file is what the scanner needs, and we already got a file. So in the previous function in search in file, we were getting the file path as an input string, but here we are directly getting the file pointer, so we can just pass that same file pointer.
Right.
Now, if you were to literally copy paste, then you will see that, okay, yeah, there is so much duplication of code. And that is when, like, let's maybe even do the copy paste right now, and then we can figure out a way to refactor that. So that,
okay, yeah.
So literally, yeah, line 23 to almost end.
And
yeah, just copy paste.
lines.
Actually, you can just do it a named return maybe. So you don't have to declare match lines.
Yeah, that's also a good one. That way, go. Yeah, makes it much more easier. Nice.
Error.
Yeah, error copy. You'll have to put it error.
Okay. Shall we try the test case? Got it ran.
Nice. It's super simple. But now let's see, go back to the refactor cycle where now we see that there is so much duplication that this is bad, right? So one immediate solution would be to be tempted to cut paste this into a separate function and then call that function in both the places, right? That's the very first reaction that will come to you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I would argue against is, okay, that is just like when you have to clean a house, you have to almost like find out all the kachra in the house and then throw it in the dustbin outside, right? And give the dustbin outside to be thrown away. When you say clean the house, it doesn't mean yahan ka kachra wahan pe, right? You don't just say, okay, let me just clean up bedroom and move all the kachra in hall, and then similarly I'll move all the kachra from like hall to some other place. That's not really cleaning and refactoring. So cleaning really means getting rid of the main problem, the core problem. So the core problem is not duplication of code. That is just a symptom. The core problem is the bad abstraction.
Right.
Right. So the bad abstraction here, and this is where a good programmer will get the hint that, look, I have a STDIN as a input here, which is a file, I also am taking file name as an input in the above function.
Yes.
Do I really need a file? Like tomorrow, then that is where you need to think that tomorrow I add a TCP socket, which is also going to be have some sort of a reading mechanism via scanner or some other means. Do I create another method for search from TCP? Something like that? No, right? That doesn't feel right. So that is where you need to figure out what is the abstraction that we can code against and what's the interface for it. So this is where we can really create a reader and user reader interface. And this is where understanding the language standard library really helps, because without that, we won't even know that there is such thing called reader interface that exists. And both file and STDIN and TCP and all the other variables or all the other entities actually implement that interface. Right. So now if we refactor it this way, most of our code will change because the API contract itself is changing.
Right.
So now this is where it's really up to the person who's driving it, how we do it. We again try to do very small baby steps. So one way, if we want to keep everything running, we can write another test case with a proper interface that we have thought of now, which is the reader interface, and implement the whole thing again, or change the existing code, change the existing test case and do it that way. If we were to go in a baby, like as you become more experienced programmer, like you can directly go and modify existing code, and you will have that if you have that confidence that I'm not going to break something. But typically what happens if we are not confident about this, we start with the implementation, we start with modifying test case and code, and then we end up in a place where we have nothing working. Like we are just stuck basically, like we are struggling with details, we're not sure how to do fix things, etc. So that is why for this case, I would say let's take a baby step and let's create a proper separate function and a test case for it. And then we will just get rid of all of these two functions. We can copy paste the code from there, add more duplication, create a full-fledged test case there, and then delete this existing code and other test cases.
Okay. So what do you mean by full-fledged test another function?
So now what we are saying is, look, if you just minimize, is there a way to minimize the functions in this whatever code editor you're using? Yeah, right. So can you minimize? Yeah. So we know that these two function signatures are not correct. I mean, they are correct, but they can be improved. So what we really need is a good function signature that can encapsulate both of these. So what will that be?
Let's say I abstracted to an interface.
I think since the user would input the search string also in the terminal or wherever, we can just use one os.file and then something like that.
No, I mean, okay, let's see what are you suggesting. So file os.file. So is os.file still a good abstraction?
No, sorry, this is supposed to be a reader, no?
Correct.
It's inside IO. Should be a pointer or
Pointer.
okay. This would be a string. Yeah.
So we don't need this whole type interface and a reader, right? We're not wrapping this in a, we don't need to wrap this in another interface. Does that make sense? Like we don't need line number 66 and 68. All we need is a function with a proper signature.
Okay.
So when you design an interface, always think, are there going to be multiple implementations of it? There is only
Yeah,
one
and since we are
implementation
yes,
of grep, right?
Right.
The input to the grep function itself was very hard coded to a file or to a file path or to a os.stdin. That is what we want to change.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, so it's just going to be a func so grep, right? Like we don't need reader there. Yeah, simply grep could be the name for the function where, and you can even say like reader, it doesn't have to be named file. You can just name it as r reader, right? And then search string, which is a string, and then this. Now imagine this is the API interface of the function that we have. Are the two functions written above almost like subsets of this function?
Yes.
They are, right? Because search, the file path can be written in a way that, okay, you can actually create a file pointer from it and just pass it as a reader, because file is a reader. Similarly, STDIN is anyway a reference to a file. So STDIN is also a reader. So that is what I was talking about. Is a versus has a relationship. So it is like inheritance in some ways, right?
Yes.
That file is a reader. File is much more than a reader. Like it has other functionality also, but by default, like file is a reader.
Yes.
So what we need is, we need to now write a test case for this
Understood.
function.
I think we'll be duplicating again.
Yeah, we'll duplicate again.
Search, scan.
So now the scanner, does it even take reader? We don't know, right? I don't know.
Takes.
Okay, takes a reader. Cool.
But it takes a. Do we really need a pointer to the reader? Are we modifying?
No, yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, I'm not very well versed with this. I don't see any reason with taking a pointer.
Yeah, agree.
so yeah, one more thing. If we are going to use pointers for other functions, I think using pointer here makes sense, because copying somewhere and then using a pointer somewhere does not make sense. So if we are planning to write it back to SD out, let's say, we would need a pointer, right?
But
So like we can remove the pointer for now.
Out, I think.
Let's see.
Okay.
We need to have named returns, right? Because or no match lines is just that's something that is missing. Declaration for it.
I'll declare it inside for
a
little better.
Match lines is equal to not var match lines.
Yeah, this would also work. Okay.
Now, yeah, can write a small test case for this function.
Okay.
In the main dot. So now, if you want to, you can just modify this test case. It's really up to us now.
I'll just
let's write
this.
a new one and then follow that process.
Test grep.
Yeah.
Okay. Test data. Okay.
So here we see the beauty, right? We can pass a file pointer to a reader. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what the power of interface is.
Yeah, it passed.
Yeah.
Let me again check by changing something.
So run it once to see if it fails, and then we can fix it. And it is failing for right reason, right? Yeah, you get 2. Okay, cool. So it works and fails for the right reason.
Works then. Okay.
Cool. So what we then can do is use this grep function as a main function, and we can move the existing test case from the first test case that we have to the last test case. We don't need this second test case now, right? The STDIN. I mean, we do need it, but I mean, yeah. So this we can remove, correct? Because this is the exact test case that we have.
We can probably do something like this, and then another one we can do test grep and then file.
Yes.
We can do here.
T dot, yeah. T dot fatal F or error F.
Yeah. I think we were using error F so that we can run.
Error F. You can just copy paste actually from there.
Acha, this is changing every time. Test data dot text.
Yeah, that's the 4th. You can change the scope of the test.
Okay. Because we are doing a fatal over here, that is why, right? When we are trying to open a file path.
Yeah, you can just do an error F there. And actually, you should check if the error is not nil. Then you should check if error is equal to the expected error.
I think what we did here, right? We had done that before.
In the test case, it was.
Achha.
Yeah.
This one.
Yes, line 84 to 88.
It should be moved. I should probably remove this, right? Or maybe.
Yeah, and we are also not closing the file. So that's something that we need to do.
I need to keep this a habit.
Yeah, so that's correct.
That should probably go in a macro.
Yeah, and that closing should be below the error. Here we are not returning from that error, but yeah. So if you have error itself in the opening, then no need to close the file. You need to close the file only if there is no error while opening the file. Yeah.
Okay. Invalid argument, non-existent. This one.
So always check and read the error carefully and check the line number where the error is, right? So in this case, there's 88, right? So
Yeah, could you do an error if there so that we can understand what's happening?
Shouldn't it be an open file instead of just open? os.open?
Acha, percentage S, right?
%v should do it, I think.
Open file needs further arguments. How did we do before?
Just open. Okay.
Just open. Because open is working for other test cases.
Mhm.
So that I don't think that's the issue. Invalid argument.
So let's go inside the function and check from where it is getting the error. Yeah.
So are we closing the, can you go back to the test case a bit?
Okay.
Are we closing, we are opening the file in each test case, right? And closing it at the end of the test case.
Yes.
And passing the file and what is the okay, test.search directory. What does the grep function take? Do you have any errors that you get there, like, or no?
One could be a scanner.
IO reader, right? That is what you
Like,
get. And
this is
we
also
have. So now this comes down to really knowing that API well, which I don't know much about right now, at least. OS dot.
So in these cases, so it is very important that you should return, or so this is the point where we should have the error message for each and every error. Last time we discussed that why to mask the error, right? So at this point of the issues, the masking of the error is important. If in the grep function itself, if we mask with our own message for each and every error, so that way we could able to identify easily from where it is exactly written there.
Okay.
Inside the grep.
Yeah, is it not possible to get a stack trace on the main.go, like where that is failing? You know what I mean? Like,
and then debug it. Invalid argument to grep returned me an invalid argument.
Yeah, so add a debug point in grep for buff.io scanner. And are we actually handling error from scanner? Is there a what buff.io.new scanner? Does it return error? Or no?
No.
Okay, just the scanner. So yeah, maybe debug and go inside the function and see what.
Scanner is returning an error. It is invalid argument, but why? Scanner is supposed to read this from this file, right? And in that particular case, okay, I get, because we are passing the file pointer and this file pointer is pointing to nothing since that file doesn't exist. Are you getting my point? This open is trying to open something which doesn't exist. So if there's an error, and since this is the same error that we are expecting, we are telling it to go ahead, and then it is trying to do a grep on that file pointer which is pointing to nothing. Did you get my point?
Right. So that means error if is not breaking the test case to be executed further, right?
Yes, because we are expecting this error. We are telling if this is the error, then proceed.
Right, but isn't it should be break the execution of that particular test case?
No,
T
it
dot
shouldn't,
error.
because it should, what it should do is it should go inside grep and should return nothing, since this is an invalid file. But scanner is trying to do some scanning on that file pointer.
Yeah, but file is not being returned, since if there is an error, then there's no file.
Sorry, Suraj, can you repeat?
Yeah, so if os.open fails,
Okay.
then file, there's nothing in file. So,
Yeah.
so there's
Then we
no
could,
point it going to there.
correct. We could add a condition if file is nil. Then maybe
Instead of, yeah, so I would suggest instead of adding condition here in the test case, that should be taken care by the function itself, right? The grep function, I mean.
I'm thinking, are we closing the reader 2 times, or because if we like we have, okay, do we have close function like defer close in the main.go?
no, I don't think.
We don't, right? Yeah, because we are just using the scanner as it is, or a reader as it is. Okay, then that's not a problem.
See, what we can do is if r equals to nil, what we can do is return, where is mask lines?
No, R was
Yeah, just return nil
No,
and
we
error
return
maybe.
just a minute, let me run this once. Because what we need is an empty string, I mean an empty array and no error. If that pointer doesn't point to something, or if it is nil.
No, I think we shouldn't, like, ये अभी थोड़ा जुगाड़ में जा रहा है.
okay. Yeah, anyway, we are also out of time. We're out of time. So we can, like, what we can do is comment out the test case and then commit it. Right now, anyway, there is no CI system, etc. So if you want to just commit it as it is, that's also okay. When we do have CI, then things will break, etc. But
Nil.
yeah, what we need to check is in the grep function, where is it failing? Like on which line is it throwing the error? Here, right, in scanner.
Yeah, I think like
So
debug statements everywhere.
yeah, scanner and reader, do they work well with each other, or do we have to use a different mechanism to read
Can
the
you check the
lines?
documentation of that error function in the scanner, what it is doing?
Just a minute. That was the fourth one, right? Nil. Why is this failing? os.file nil. I mean, this comparison is wrong. If you could do a proper comparison, this will, I think, proceed.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Or is not equal to nil.
If anyone could Google this, what happens?
So what does this even mean? Like, I mean, I don't know what are you checking?
What I'm trying to do
equal to
is,
nil is what? What are we checking?
I'm telling you what I'm trying to do. Where is this? Okay. I tried to open a file which doesn't exist. Okay. So it threw me an error. But this is the same error that we're expecting, that this file doesn't exist. So we don't want to fail this test case. We want to say, yes, I know that file doesn't exist. So it should return me an empty
Which test case are we like?
This
Which
one.
one is failing? How are we sure that that is exactly the test case that is failing?
Because this is the name over here, non-existent file path.
Ah, okay, non-existing. So the other
Assertion change हो जाएगा ना?
Sorry.
The other test cases are passing.
All are passing. This is the last one that is failing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Assertion can be changed, right? For this, I mean,
How?
since the test is expecting to not find a file,
Correct. Yeah.
you should check for not having a file. So this file path shouldn't. So if I get a -1, then the test passes. I mean, you get what I'm saying, right?
But
check for a false.
नहीं यहाँ पे flow ऐसा है कि you have to throw an error, otherwise it passes.
So expect an error. Expect that error in your test case as well. I need this error to drop in.
Yeah, so we are expecting it. So no such file or directory is what we are expecting.
But then this is
Expecting
common
one
for
error,
all
but
the
we get a different error. That's the problem.
Oh,
since this is common for all the
Oh.
test cases, we can't change just for one test case.
No, so let's in that case then need to check again. This is now going into that API part, which it's difficult to do remotely from here. So what we can do is reader scanner is basically erroring out, right? So now the API has changed. So we are okay to change the expected error. Because earlier we were using from a file, reading from a file. That's why we are getting the file error.
Yeah.
But now we are reading from a reader. So it is very likely that scanner is going to return different error. And that is what it is doing. So it is okay to change our error to what the actual output is.
Right.
Right, because now to really find out whether this is a correct error and whatnot, we'll have to go into the scanner implementation and understand, okay, when scanner tries to read from a file which is not existing, what happens?
Yeah.
What kind of error does it return? And if it returns invalid argument, then yeah, be it, like we can't change it. We haven't written scanner logic, so we will just have to use that exact same error in the assertion.
Yeah, inside the error not equal to nil loop, you can just put an fmt.println and then print out the error.
Yeah, it is mostly going to be the same invalid argument because we're printing that in the got.
Okay.
Just copy invalid argument from the terminal and then
what
paste
if-
it in the error.
But we are expecting from the API that if we are unable to do any sort of grep on it, then just return me an empty array of string. That yeah, I don't have any matches.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
But that is after you added like the line 70 to 73, right?
So, sorry, which line? 72?
73. You added it after the errors, like the test case didn't pass.
Because that is because R is os.file nil, and I'm comparing that. Comparison is failing. That is what I'm asking, how to compare these two. I just want to make that true. But if this os.file nil is true by comparing to something, then I'll return a empty array and nil. That is the problem that we have. Ye mil jayega, then I think the test cases will run.
Could you hover over R?
Yes.
Yeah, so pointer, can it be like nil?
Yeah, pointer may be nil, yes.
I'm not sure what it means.
what's the code like? We are passing some reader, right? It's not that we are passing empty reader.
Yeah.
So it
So
is probably
scanner
the
is-
scanner's behavior is
Yeah.
where that is failing. So what I feel right now is that we will have to change, because we change the way the library functions use, or we change the, I mean, we are using a file library, file IO. Now we are using a generic IO. So generic IO is returning a generic error. File IO was returning file not found error. So the generic error is invalid argument. Well, I mean, that's what the Golang designers thought. That's a error. What is invalid? What was the past argument? Why is it invalid? I mean, I don't have, we don't have those details, but well, what can we do? One way to try and do that is write a like quick dirty program, or use Golang, whatever that Go playground, to try and write a simple like scanner functionality to read from a file that is non-existing and see what is the error that we get, how it behaves. Or going through the documentation of scanner and really finding out what is the behavior of scanner when the input stream is non-existent. How does it behave? What kind of error it throws? And if it's the same as invalid argument, then that is it. That is what you assert on.
Right.
So I don't think even that R equal to nil comparison is needed, at least that's what I feel. And in the main test case, we just have to assert, instead of the file not found error, we assert for invalid argument. Right. So if you go there on line number what?
23.
Yeah, in the expected error 81 line, in the test case code, we will have to go and update.
Yeah,
I
line number
think it's
73.
73.
May I just
JSON that we have right on top somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, here.
Yeah.
Where we just say invalid
Yeah.
argument.
What do you want me to update this with?
Invalid
Invalid
argument.
invalid argument. So one in the terminal.
But this is not throwing invalid argument. That is coming up over here at this point. So grep return kar raha, na ki os.open. It is still returning no such file or directory.
Okay, yeah, correct. So but are we okay? We're trying to open a file that is non-existing here itself.
Yes.
Then we will get an error, and we are passing that file still to the function.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we should put the error checking that we have from line 80 to 84 on the error for the grep.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, instead of putting it on open का और उसका switch कर दो बस. Nice, keep that same. 80 to 84 cut कर लो.
If I remove this, it will fail over here.
No, just okay. So 80 to 84, cut it out.
Okay.
And paste it on 83.
Right.
Yeah, and then what was on 83, paste it on 80, just 80.
That was, if error is not equals to nil, then you fail the test.
Yes.
But I don't want to fail the test if file is not being opened, because that is what I'm expecting. That file
Then
doesn't.
actually here we shouldn't be checking for os.open is failing or not, because that is not our goal.
Correct. Yeah.
We should just ignore the error.
Yes.
And it should be.
No. Keep that the same. That should be fine. Yeah.
No. It should be invalid argument.
Because grep is
Grep
returning.
is returning invalid argument, not the no such a file.
Okay.
Yeah, try to run now.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, one hell of a ride.
Yeah. I think.
Okay, but now we have a working think so. Yeah. You don't. Do we need the if r equal to? Okay, no, right? Yeah. So now let's try to run again. It should work. Okay, cool.
Works fine.
Could
So
you
now,
check the code coverage?
Yes.
yeah, so we don't
Yeah,
need
we
the
haven't-
two functions and the two test cases now.
We can remove these two, right? We don't.
Yeah, we don't need the
Yeah, yeah,
functions. We don't
just
need the test cases completely.
comment them out, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, delete actually. It's okay. It's in the we deleted main also actually. So keep the main function. This println hello world whatever is there. Fine. And the test also. If you want to delete the comments in the test, feel free to do that. That's also we don't need this anymore.
This is grep, and this is. I mean, that was for.
Oh yeah,
STDIN.
we just modified that test. Cool. Yeah, so if you want to remove these comments, happy path and empathic, all that, that's also fine. Or keep it whichever way. This was more for learning, and I was taking
Yeah,
notes.
maybe move that to readme.m.
Yeah, or,
MD.
Okay.
because it doesn't have a great structure. Okay, cool, 83%. The only error not equal to nil is not covered, correct? Regex error. That's fine.
I think this is good enough for today.
Cool. Yeah. So more than good enough. Most of the people already dropped off.
What should be a good command? Add
Or change
refactored one interface.
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah, instead of past tense, yeah, just if refactor to
Reader interface.
along with test cases. Yeah.
And all the files will be committed, right? When you do this, or
Yes, both.
okay. Okay, cool, nice. So finally, at least we figured out a interface, the proper interface for this function.
Right.
Right? So
Today was interesting, quite interesting.
so it took a while, but and if you see right now, we are almost back to square one. I mean, we only have one function which just does basic thing. So you might say that, okay, look, we spent what 4 or 5 hours working on this program and project, but all you have is this interface. I mean, all you have is this.
Right.
But the idea is that we, like a really good programmer, as you do TDD again more and more often, and you get good at interfaces, design, etc., you would start seeing these patterns way before, and you won't have to go through these like milestones to actually reach the interface design. For example, in the Ultimate Go test case, Ultimate Go programming course, William Kennedy says that design to an interface. That means every function should accept an interface and return a struct. Like, don't accept a struct and return a struct. So wherever possible, just accept the interface.
Okay.
And this is what we actually came to fundamentally, right? We were accepting a struct earlier, which is file or STDIN or STDOut, whatever. And we refactor that to accept an interface. Because if you think about it, the R function is only needed, like scanner can also work with just a reader.
Yes.
So it doesn't need a concrete specific hard-coded implementation of a reader, which is a file or a STDIN. It can just work with a generic reader. So always, like, one rule of thumb that you can try to follow in this or any other program is check if my function parameters can be moved to and made to be interfaces instead of concrete types.
And this has become future proof also.
Yes. So tomorrow we want to write a TCP like grep from set, which greps from a TCP stream. Yeah. As long as it is a reader, we can just pass a TCP stream to it.
Right.
And again, other part is because we did it via TDD. This is again the core part of it. We haven't written the actual working functionality, right? Which is the whole go run and reading from CLI, control C, etc. None of that is written because we did it via TTD, we could also figure out that all of that part is just incidental complexity.
Yes.
Right? It is all periphery that we have to handle input from STDIN, we have to handle input from a file or other. This is just noise. The real core part is the grep functionality, which greps from a reader.
Yes.
In this case, we can even design and like a function here if you want to create whatever the scanner.txt, we can accumulate this all scanning and create a final file, sorry, a buffer out of it, like a slice array or a array of strings, and that could be another internal grep function we could use.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I think anyway this is just too much for today's session, so we can stop here and we'll work on the next steps next time.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Yeah. Next time, who's driving it? It's my turn again, or Rohan's turn again, or Kalpesh actually.
Yeah, I can take this to next session. Oh, wait, but next week I'm not available.
Oh yeah, you are not there. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We'll figure out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.